welcome along to this edition of the panel. This is our second edition of the panel, and you're watching it on LiRmedia.tv in association with Blue Sky Broadcasting Media Services Limited. And I won't mention all that again because it's a mouthful. But we have an email as well for people who want to make a comment on it, and it's info@LiRmedia.tv. Welcome, Miriam O'Gara. Welcome along, and delighted to see you again. And we must say, since we saw you last, before you say hello to us, I love the program. I love the Writer's Block. It's up there. Her programs are all up on YouTube channel. Is that right, Miriam?
That's right. Business Block and Writer's Block, the two of them.
Yeah, Business Block and Writer's Block. There you are now, lads. And I haven't seen them all, but I have seen a lot of them, and I must compliment you on them. Really excellent.
Oh, thank you, Pat, and thanks for inviting me on tonight.
Well, I meant to say it a long time ago, but you know, one day follows into another week. Chris Price, good evening to you, Chris, and welcome back.
Good evening, everyone. How is everyone?
We miss you, Chris. All is forgiven.
Must be a hole in your head, Mary. What you forgive me for? What? So there's not. I just needed to take a summer hiatus.
Oh yes, yeah, and indeed, I mean that was a testing time for all of us. Mary,
too many things going on.
Thank you.
Now, we sent out a few ideas to start off the program, some current, some not so current, but we have to start somewhere. Now, there was a slight kerfuffle in the media, generally speaking, when the President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins, declined an invitation to what he described first as an ecumenical service to mark the partition of the island of Ireland. That's the creation of the 6 counties. Anyway, they got over that with a lot of huffing and puffing, but now one of our most senior ministers in our government, which is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, only outranked by the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach in our government, for people who might be looking at this abroad, our Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, and then our next most important politician on this island is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Chief Whip of the government, Jack Chambers, have decided that they're going to attend this partition centenary in 6 counties. Now, Miriam, have you thought about this, and what is your sense about it? You know, we're just going to have a general gist of opinions on it, really. You know,
it is a difficult one. In one way, I'm glad that this controversy happened, 6 weeks ago, because it has now meant that the government can respond. In a way, if this hadn't happened with Michael D, we'd have a much bigger argument in the media right now. I understand where Michael D. Higgins was coming from as the President of Ireland. And if you go on to president.ie and look at his actual oath, his actual swearing in, he was sworn in as the President of Ireland for all the people of Ireland. So I can understand the position that it placed him in, being recognized only as the President of the Republic, when in fact he represents the Unionists also in his eyes, but he certainly represents the nationalists up north too. So it was always going to be contentious. I mean, they're really highlighting, I'd love to have seen the invitation.
I would too.
Well, it would have been great, but the thing they're really highlighting now, excuse the flash on my screen, I don't know why that's coming in, is the fact that it's a service of, what are they calling it, reflection and hope. Well, that's fine. If that's what it now, as a result of all that's happened in the last 6 weeks, really delivers on, then that's okay. And I think actually sending someone, I have great regard for Simon Coveney. I know I met him at one of your book launches, Mary, in Dublin, and I really like, you were there as well, Pat. And actually I have a lot of time for him. I think he'd make a great Taoiseach or a great Taoiseach one day. But I really do think that he is the right person to send up with Jack Chambers. I think they will not put their foot in it in any way. They will definitely keep the message on track from whatever that message they're going to bring to that event from the Irish government, they will definitely focus it on, in my opinion, they'll focus it on the positive. They're good at talking up the positive. And I think somehow we'll manage to find a way through this. But for this to have happened, and I'm really surprised that the Catholic hierarchy and other church denominations didn't really see that this ball could be dropped with the way in which they worded the invitation and the way in which they worded the title that they give it. You mentioned the name partition, the word partition, and it's always going to be.
It's never going to be a win-win.
So it's not going to be a win-win. So, I mean, there's a lot behind the scenes we don't know about. I'm glad that it's all dying down now, but I do believe that Michael D. Higgins did exactly the right thing. I think he did exactly the right thing. And as he says, it's the fact that the labels that will be forever associated with it were not neutral enough.
And Chris, what do you think? Do you think that the attendance alone is an affront to people who see this as rubbing our noses in it?
Rubbing whose noses in it, Pat?
The people in the 26 counties, as some people have said.
I don't understand what you mean by rubbing people's noses in it.
Well, by Coveney and Chambers going up to this, they politicised the whole thing.
The whole thing was politicised from the start, Pat.
Yeah.
Let's go back here 6 months when the invitation came out.
Yeah.
The president's office raised concerns about it 6 months before he spoke out about it. It was politicized from the very, very start, right? And it will take an hour and a day to go through it if you want, but I'll try and synopsize it in a few moments, right? I don't particularly care if Simon Coveney or Jack Chambers goes. I think, my opinion, I did have good time for Simon Coveney, but he's burned his bridge with me over the Sapone affair, right? Simple as that. He was basically economical with the truth over that and tried to cover his tracks so many times that all he ended up doing was tripping himself up. Okay, that's my opinion, and that's what it was. Okay. Secondly, and he admitted that he wasn't forthcoming with the truth. He admitted that. So let's be fair. Okay. Secondly, the president was right, because basically it was, and I mean, from someone who was from the north originally, although I'm not off the north, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
I just find it kind of hilarious when I hear the likes of Jeffrey Donaldson calling about, we need to, you have to be kind of showing toward the unionist community. Let me tell you something. The unionist community have shown nothing but disdain towards the 26 counties, the Irish government, and even the Catholic nationalist population in North for the last 100 years anyway, okay? So for Jeffrey Donaldson to say now that it's actually an affront towards unionists, I'm choosing my words very carefully as my first night back in a while, but it's completely wrong for him to say that. I mean, if Jeffrey Donaldson wants to show pure unity towards the people in all sectors of the North, why didn't he go and watch a hurling match down the Falls Road? He's no interest in doing that. Okay, let's be fair, right? It's always seen as that it's always seen that the nationalist sides have to be the ones that have to do something to appease the unionists. Okay, let's be fair about this. Okay, the secondly, I think about it is that Miriam is 100% right. Okay, the religious groups who organize this have basically caused this to happen. Nobody else but themselves. No one to blame but themselves. Okay, and it just shows you in a way how the wane of the religious is now over the society in Ireland over the last maybe 30, 40 years, that basically no one cares what they think anymore. Let's be fair, right? I mean, I don't even think that this Catholic Church in the North speaks for nationalists anymore, because no one's listening to them. If you look at Mass attend, people would go to Mass in the North just because, listen, you're talking to someone who was christened after 7 days, because that's what they do in the North, right? See, nowadays, they would take 4 months, 5 months, they don't care anymore about religion. That's the thing about it. It's not a big deal. Okay, it's coming down to sectarianism, but when it comes down to religion, when the people say that they are one side or the other, you need to see what the numbers are. Do they actually go to their own services? I wonder. So look, to wrap it up, from what I'm trying to say is, I think that as I said, if Coveney and Jack Chambers wants to go, that's their business. Whether they're usurping the authority of the president, not because the president doesn't have any authority anymore. It never did really, so it doesn't really matter. But I think Michael D. Higgins made the right call, and by doing so, put John Bruton in his place, who made an absolute idiot of himself days afterwards. And for a former prime minister of this country to basically be lectured by, well, I wouldn't say lectured. He was lecturing the president, but he was schooled by the president in the end about the legalities of the functions of the president. And it just shows you that John Bruton does not speak for people anymore.
Mary, what do you think of this idea? Obviously, before we go further, for people who might have a bit of confusion, it was a cabinet decision, a government decision to send those two representatives. They didn't just jump up and put up their hand. So we have to state that as well, that it was a cabinet decision. What do you think, Mary, of their attendance?
Well, I have to say I agree with both Miriam and Chris in that, I mean, I don't... Look, I think that Simon Coveney and Jack Chambers are, as Miriam says, probably the right people to go up, because they do carry themselves with a lot of presence, if you like, and they are not going to, apart from the recent happening with Simon Coveney, he's not going to put his foot in it. He's going to carry it out to the best of his ability, and with a level of decorum, if you like. I do think the president was 100% right. And I think most people in this country think that the president was right in this. He was undermined. He was regarded as the president of the Republic of Ireland, whereas that straight away was sending political signals out.
Mary, it was an insult.
In something that
it was an insult, Mary.
It was an insult, but it was making an ecumenical event, as you said, very political from the get-go. Secondly, when the government was asked about the invitation, would they attend? The reply was from Leo Varadkar, well, we haven't received an invitation yet. And he said, when and if we do, he said, we will certainly give it our full attention, and we'll make a decision then. And that struck me as rather unusual, that the President of Ireland would have been sent an invitation as the President of the Republic, and at the same time, the government of the Republic of Ireland hadn't at that stage received an invitation. And I also agree with Chris about John Bruton. I think it looked shockingly bad that the Taoiseach, the former Taoiseach of Ireland, or the former Prime Minister of Ireland, for people living in the UK or anywhere else, the former Prime Minister of Ireland would reprimand the President of our country.
Well, what he did, Mary, was, if you want to be honest with you, and I listened to the interview that he gave on the Claire Byrne radio show at the time, he not only reprimanded him, but he basically questioned whether he had actually went through procedure, followed the Constitution. And what he said was that he basically made a decision without consulting the government. And the government came and says, well, do you know what, lads, he actually did ask us about this. And we said, look, make up your own mind, whatever you want to do.
It was entirely the president's decision.
Absolutely. And then when John Bruton came on and said afterwards, and he made another statement, which I thought, you know what, sometimes you have to say sometimes, lads, stop digging, because that hole is only going to get bigger if you keep digging. And that's what John Bruton did. And And he basically forced the president of this country to come out and defend himself. And it was getting to be a slanging match in the media because it was like statement here, statement there, statement. It was like a boxing match for a while. And you were kind of waiting, when's the next person going to make the next statement? And I think when John Bruton, the penny dropped when he was told that, yes, the president did follow the Constitution. The president did follow protocol. And only then did he basically back down. But it was very unbecoming of a former prime minister of this country to take on the current president.
Over something so contentious as the border.
But we all know where John Bruton sits on this anyway. So let's not call a spade on this.
I'm going to cut across you there a minute, lads, and say good evening, John Lonergan. Can you hear us?
Good evening.
Good evening, John Lonergan, and welcome to the panel. And here on Media.tv. John, we're just discussing about Simon Coveney and Jack Chambers attending the partition event, marking the centenary of the partition of this country. What do you think of it yourself?
I think it's, I think it's disgraceful that they're going up there. But because it's Fine Gael, nothing surprises me with them. 1 minute they're saying, they want this, but really behind the scenes, I think they want to go whatever is happening in England,
And do you think, obviously the decision has been made by the cabinet, which is Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens, and the Chief Whip and the Minister for Foreign Affairs go up. So you think they should not go up?
I agree, yeah, they shouldn't have.
Right. And that was the first topic we had, John, and we were just discussing before you came on that the president refused because obviously when he saw that it's going to be politicized, he decided, look, when it went away from being an ecumenical event to a political one, obviously he did the right thing. Everybody agrees with that. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you're listening to the panel here on the LiR Media.tv.
But Pat, may I come in on that, if you don't mind? I do think that the president, as a president of this country, he has to make that decision separate from the government. And I go back to Bruton again, coming in and challenging him on it. It was his choice whether to go and represent the Republic of Ireland or represent the Irish people. He wasn't invited as the president of Ireland. He was invited as the president of the Republic of Ireland. And straight away, that was tantamount to inviting somebody the night before an event and saying, oh, sorry, I forgot about you. Here's an invitation. It wasn't an invitation to him. It was an insult, as I think Chris said.
I tell you what it's like. I tell you exactly what it's like. It's as if basically someone had invited the Queen to an event and called her Mrs. Windsor.
Right, that would be...
or the Queen of England, instead of the Queen of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
You can tell if as Miriam made a great point, you would have loved to have seen the invitation, right? We can only go by what people are saying.
Yeah, that's true.
You can tell that if the current president, and he's not the president of nationalists in the north, he's actually the president of unionists in the north as well. Those that choose to be that way. Right, that's up to them, right? And the great thing about being like that is that people have a choice up there. They can be unionist or they can be nationalist, right? Or they can be neither. It's up to themselves, right? But the point of the matter is this: is that whoever wrote that invitation and put down the president of the Republic of Ireland knew damn well what they were doing.
They did, and they were insulting. They were deliberately insulting.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. They knew what they were doing.
That's true. LiRmedia.tv. Our email is info@LiRmedia.tv if you want to make a comment. And the panel is the show here with Miriam, Mary, John, and Chris. We're going to move along to another topic. And if you have anything else to bring up, let's jump in because that's what this is all about. Sláinte Care was something that was launched nearly 3 years ago now, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, 2 or 3 years ago. with a huge, big, thick discussion paper and glossy brochures and the usual fanfare of people on television and radio. Anyway, one thing about Britain, when I was over there in the 1970s, a long time ago, their NHS system is fantastic. Why we should go around hiring all these consultants, experts and everything, just do replicate NHS here with slight things. We don't have to invent the wheel. Healthcare should be free at the point of entry to every citizen in this republic. That's what it's about. And to cut through all the crap and the red tape, the consultants are running the health service. They run our health service in this country are run for the benefit of the consultants, not for the doctors, not for the nurses, certainly not for the patient. It's consultant-led, consultant-run. And until such time as that cycle is finished, you can forget about it. So now we have a situation where 3 of the best people that were handpicked to run and lead Sláinte care are gone in utter frustration. It's handed over to the CEO of the HSE, which is a question. A man that, of course, we know that man where he was before. He was with Eircom. Do you remember Eircom? And the debacle of Eircom shares, and here he is now on 420 grand a year, he leading the HSE. And he's expected to reform the very institution that he's heading up, plus a few with Stephen Donnelly and all that. Really, what you think of the Sláinte care? The principle is a good one, but now in our case again, we've made a pig's ear of it.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, unused to being asked first about anything. Not quite ready. Sláinte,
we think that you're the person that needs most care.
do you know, I think for a long time I've been frustrated with the health service here in the country. When you look at, as you say, you're quite right, Pat, when you look at the health service in the UK, you know, it is a million. Yes, they have a bigger country, and yes, there's more money in the country, if you like, but my God, it's a million times better than the health service, I think, here. I think, you know, with regards, say, to the consultants, you know, what frustrates me is when you see consultants working in a hospital and they're only working certain hours in the clinic when you have to go to, just so you break your leg, you have to go to the clinic, and they're rushing away. You can only see them between a certain hour. If it's gone, say the hour, it's their locum or the person that's working with them that sees you, because they're gone off to take their private patients. And my view is that consultants should either be public consultants. If they want to work in their private service, absolutely fine. But you can't have it both ways. You can't be working in the public service and also working as a private person. And I do believe that the hospitals should be open 24/7. And I think that, you know, the idea that when you go to a hospital and you go in on a Friday night and you need to see a doctor or you need to see a surgeon, and if it's not an emergency, you have to wait until Monday morning until you see a surgeon, because there's nobody on duty.
Monday about 12 o'clock.
Yeah, Monday about 12 o'clock, and you've gone in at about maybe 4 o'clock or maybe 12 o'clock on a Friday noon, and you have the whole weekend sitting on a trolley maybe to see, why aren't there nurses and doctors working shifts and specialists working at weekends? I don't understand that. It's not a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday.
No, the nurses and doctors are working weekends, but the consultants don't.
Yeah, no. But there's not enough doctors working at weekends, and the doctors that are there are over.
But you have to ask yourself, why are there not enough doctors and nurses? Because they're getting better paid. No, they're getting better paid in private hospitals. They're getting better conditions in private hospitals. And the problem is here, and I know this for a fact because my mother had a stroke nearly 3 years ago, okay? And we went into the hospital on I think it was a Friday night, And a doctor came towards us, and when I asked him questions about what's going to happen and what's the story, couldn't tell me anything. And I says, why don't you know? He says, well, I'm only started as a doctor in the last 6 weeks. I says, well, can you get me a doctor that does understand? And he says, well, they're not available until Monday.
Yes,
This is
so frustrating.
this is in Limerick's stroke dependency, high dependency unit, the stroke unit, right? That was only operational through JP McManus family giving a big donation to that hospital, right? And they can't staff that with specialists and with consultants on a 7-day basis. You're 100% about, they were told years ago by Mary Harney, and then they were told that if they didn't accept a $250,000 contract a year on a public contract, sling you a hook. And they didn't, right? And the government hadn't the strength. They didn't have the strength, and they didn't have the courage, and they didn't have the goal, right, to go and tell those consultants, well, if you want to go private, because they knew that those doctors were the ones that are actually holding up the system. And COVID has actually shown how fragile our health system is, because when they had to shut down everything, and I think it's very important that we remember this week for 2 reasons. One is Eileen Rush, and the other one is Vicky Phelan. Okay, both women, one who died last week and the other one who's not doing good, and let's be fair. Those 2 women and over 300 women have been failed by this health service because we're outsourcing everything. We're outsourcing the kitchens. The food is deplorable inside there. We're outsourcing everything, right? And until you actually are in that system and see it close up, that it's not the people, it's not the nurses, it's not the junior doctors, it's not those that are the problem. It's the layer of management who are getting over 100, 150 grand, not the consultants, it's the management. They are the cancer of the Irish health service.
Well, now, John, not far from you there, I lost my own brother to cancer, and he died in the edifice out in Wilton, the regional hospital. I hadn't been in there for 10, 15 years, thank God I hadn't been in there. When I went in to visit him, he hadn't long to live. The hospital was filthy, absolutely filthy. I could not believe it. There was, the entrance alone was shocking. Just going in the main. I don't know, is it any better since? And I said to myself, God, what's my brother doing in here? We went upstairs.
But because they're understaffed, Pat, and it's as simple as this. I mean, if you look back when...
Hang on a second. Excuses are unacceptable. Now, John, have you been in the music or have you been notion to go to hospital? Really, the staff, the management of the Limerick Hospital is shocking. It's mismanaged. There's a CEO there who doesn't know anything about management skills or anything, the basic skills, why you pile people up in trolleys and you leave them there like, I don't know what you call them, like cattle in the hallways till somebody might breeze in at 12 o'clock on Monday with a stethoscope and pick up a few of them and leave them off again. But John, what do you think of it yourself, the idea of Sláinte Care, having health service where it's free at the point of entry, like they have in the NHS in Britain? Surely we can do that with a small population.
Well, again, Mary and that other gentleman there, I can't remember his name. I wasn't Chris. Sorry, Chris. Apologies.
It's okay, John.
He said twice. You said it, Chris. I think 3 times, and Mary said it twice. The word is private, and this is what they want: is privatization of everything in this country, and that's what Fine Gael and Labour and Fianna Fáil are heading into now. It's all about the privatization of everything we have. We're talking about hospitals. Thank God, so far I haven't been in the regional hospital in Cork for a long, long time. I haven't had reason to go there. But I agree, Pat, it's the way it's been run. It's the very same in every other hospital, the CEOs, everything. It's like a cancer in the HSE. They're all doing their jobs and they're passing the buck down the line all the time. It's like in every industry, but in the hospitals, it's now stopping at the nurses and the doctors. And we're a shortage of nurses, we have a shortage of doctors, but you go down to a private hospital I personally am getting my knee done next month. I was referred by my own doctor years ago, I don't know how many years ago, and I got a letter 3 months, 4 months ago saying I should have been done in the south, the Victoria Hospital, but I was sent down to the private hospital, the Mater Hospital.
Yeah.
My first time now in a private hospital, I wouldn't go. Obviously, it's been paid for by the state. I walked in, and within 5 minutes, I was seen by the doctor. I was sent across the hall. I got x-rays within 10 minutes. Back outside the doctor's door. He opened the door after 7 minutes, came in, and there was my x-rays up in front of him, and he telling me what was wrong and what he can do. I said to him, you know, when can I, will I get my knee done? And he said, I can do it by the end of the week. Private hospital, paid for by the state. Now, I had to defer it because for personal reasons, and I'm going back now next month, and I'm certain I'm going to be done, and I'll be done within a week. But all private, paid for by the state, paying the private hospitals. Well, I couldn't be seen in my local hospital, either one of them. I can be seen in a private hospital, and this is what's wrong, and it's about the privatization.
Yeah.
And Miriam, I take your point, John. It's well made by many people. And Miriam, the whole principle of Sláinte Care, so we started, Miriam, about the same as the NHS. I'm sure you have experience abroad. You've been abroad many years in different countries of the different health services that are available. Myself, I have availed them myself, thankfully not too seriously. But you think the principle is obviously, is what we need really, where it's free at the point of entry. That's what Sláinte Care is all about. Do you think that it'll be able to get back up on track? You know, we're a small country, we should be able to do it.
Well, they're saying that if anything, the pandemic is possibly the one thing that will actually help it get back on track. I'm not quite sure what the argument behind that is, but what I was reading today was saying that it looks as though that may actually, in the end, have helped it along. I mean, I don't have a problem with the concept of private. I think it has its place. I just want the lists to reduce. You know, I just want the communication in the public sector to be, you know, monitored properly, reviewed. That's very important when you go into either a GP or to see an attendant under a consultant. I mean, nobody's going, generally speaking, very few people see the consultant that is on the letter that they're actually being referred to. You will see one of their team, who are usually highly qualified people, and you'll see a senior member of that team. And that's quite normal practice in every country in the world. But you would like to think that you get to see the actual consultant at least once. And that very often doesn't happen in certain sectors. And that's a worry. And I know my own experience here in this country of going either to see cardio or bone specialists, osteo issues. Very often what's happened is I've waited, I've gone, and the person who's on the list, the consultant on my list, is not the one that I actually see. It is a consultant that I'm seeing, but it's the second person.
Yeah.
It's the one on my page left 2 years ago. You know, it's the second person in that job, and that's very disconcerting. You think you're going in to see, for example, a woman, and then you realize that this is the second person to have had their position.
Yes.
And you've got to readjust for a moment to say, okay, well, right, you know, what do you know? Have you actually read the file? You don't know if they're up to date on you.
Shocking.
That's very upsetting if you're you know, the patient, for want of a better word. But also you've got, you know, I accept the fact that we've got a small population, and I accept the fact that, you know, the United Kingdom with its 80 million plus is able to fund an NHS better. But by and large, I would say that the doctors and the nurses do a fabulous job here in Drogheda and in the Navan Hospital here. Absolutely outstanding work. You know, I know when
You're
my
right,
husband,
Miriam. I mean, there's nobody going to take issue with that. I'll give Mary the last word in a second about nurses and doctors. We're tired of hearing it. We know they do a good job, but the mismanagement, the book has to stop with somebody.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you look back,
Go on.
when you look back years ago, and for all you can say about the nuns, and you know, I mean, all you anything that you could say. I'm sorry, but we had a hospital near us, St. John's Hospital, Barrington's Hospital, the regional hospital. You had nuns were in charge. You could eat off the floor. You had nurses that wore different color stripes. They were plain little cap if they were a student nurse. They were green if they were practically finished. They were blue if they were a staff nurse. And then you had the nun overseeing and making sure every single thing was spick and span. Now they've outsourced all cleaning to companies that come in, are paying their staff very, very little. Staff leave, staff come in, other staff come in their place. They're not getting paid properly. They, you know, why would they put in the work? The reason the nurses did it years ago was they were afraid of, you know, there was a hierarchy, and they were afraid of it. And I, like Miriam, have no problem with private health service. I mean, I agree with people having the right to go private if they want to. But my bugbear all the time is the fact that how can you not see a specialist until Monday morning if you come in on Friday night and you're just sitting there? And how come there isn't a rota of people, of doctors and specialists and people who are under these specialists there every Saturday and every Sunday?
Because
24/7.
They don't want to do the hours. Hang on, hang on a second.
I know they don't want to do the hours.
Well, hang on. You name me. Hang on a second now. Let's be fair, right?
Yeah.
Name me any other business that you can think of that allows people, employees, to pick and choose their hours and pick and choose who they work for. Now, Pat knows, and you know, Mary, I work for eBay, right?
Yeah.
Now, could you imagine me looking for a job with eBay, and I'm with them 2 years next week, right? Turning up at my interview and saying, lads, thanks very much for giving me the 5 days, weeks. However, I'm going to work 2 days with you, and I'm going to spend 3 days of my working week with Amazon, one of your competitors. What do you think eBay are going to say to me? They're going to tell me to sling my hook and go to Amazon if that's what. Thanks, but no thanks, right? We are being dictated to by employees because they are so crucial. Because if we didn't have those consultants double jobbing, for want of a better phrase, right, then we won't have a health. And you know what? They know that as well. They know that without them, the health service will fall apart. Now, while we are a small nation and we're a small population, we are only the size of Greater Manchester, lads. So just don't lose the run of ourselves. This could be a lovely little country if it's run right. The problem is there's too many interested vested groups. And John probably knows that more than anybody else. The point I'm making about here is this, is that we don't have the strength and we don't have the courage to tell these people, go elsewhere if you want. And it's the same with everything in our public life.
But it's not
That's
even
the problem.
perfect.
And let me explain you one more thing, and I'll finish on this, right?
Yeah.
I had to go for an MRI scan last week, right? I got the phone call 6 weeks. I had to wait 6 weeks. And when I was told, now I've got private insurance, my work pays for my private insurance, right? Yeah. Now, they rang me and said, and I went, how much is it? Oh, it's free. I said, what do you mean it's free? An MRI scan cannot be free. They said, it is because of COVID. I said, now hang on a second. Now you're going to have to run that one by me one more time. I said, why is it free with COVID? And why is it? And then they said, well, it's because of the data, what you call
computers,
it? The computer, the leak or the data kind of leak or whatever, protection thing, right? And it says, why is that? Well, because of what we have to do, the HSC have decided that they're going to basically give everyone private and public the MRI scan free. And I went, well, thanks for your
they have, Chris, because my husband's just had to pay €250 for his MRI scan.
Can I explain this? Well, listen, I had my MRI scan. Miriam, this is what they tell me, and I didn't pay for it. Let me explain, please. Okay, so I went in and it says it's free. She told me this in August. And I says, why is it free? And she told me the reason why. This is what her says. She says, I can only tell you what she said. She says, because of what's happened, the HSE are giving all MRI scans free. I went, fine, thank you very much for your generosity. I turned up. The first thing she said to me behind the counter was, how are you paying for this? And I went, hang on a second now. It says, you told me on the phone that it's free. Oh yeah, that's right. Now that gave me the impression, while it's free, they were chancing around to see if you were going to pay or not.
Well,
Right? That's what I get the impression, that they probably says, Jesus lads, we shouldn't have given these guys the free MRI. Let's see if we can claw some of it back. Then when I said, well, hang on, you told me over the phone I'm not paying for this. Oh yeah, that's right. For work away, you're grand. That's the problem. Now I didn't pay for that, and I'm not expecting a bill, because if I am, it's going straight back.
now we know what caused the computer to crash. Chris's MRI. The computers were
The hip, not the MRI scan, it was the hip.
You cannot be. You're listening to LiR Media, the panel, and we have an email info@lirmedia.tv. I can see the time is flying, but look, we'll move along to this. John, we'll go to you first for this. The budget is on next Tuesday. Now, John, I know a lot of people will be laughing and rubbing their hands, and they won't take any notice, and it'll be a photo call and all else for the politicians. We that's a given. But genuinely, when I think about a budget, I think about this is how our elected government sees Irish society for the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, seeing how they're going to treat their citizens, seeing how they're going to look after the most vulnerable, the most needy, and all of that. Am I a fool for thinking that, John?
100%, Pat, because I think everybody, no matter who you are, staunch supporter of any of the parties, it's an utter disgrace what they're planning to do. I mean, the carbon tax, the property tax, all that stuff going increasing, and yet they're not increasing anything for anybody. I just think that they're so far up their own backsides that they cannot see the ordinary person living on the street, how much it's affecting them. I said this a long time ago on this program about where did they get the figure €350 for the PUP payment? And I know of students who are still on it. They only worked 8 hours a weekend, which was included a Saturday and a Sunday, 4 hours on the Saturday evening and 4 hours on a Sunday morning. And they were able to leave the work and get to €350 a week. So I want to know where they got that 350. Is that what they're thinking people can live on? Because that's what people were living on. But it was the wrong people, if you know what I mean. I don't say nobody was entitled to it.
Yeah.
But the people, every place, Limerick, I'm sure, is the same. Galway, Cork, right? Anywhere where the colleges are, there was parties going on right through the whole pandemic. And every week they were listening to it on the radio, and you're looking at it on the newspapers. Parties. And why? Because they were getting 350 a week. All the landlords never said anything about it because they were still raking in the money when they thought everyone was gone. And this budget, it'll probably be a little sweetener here and there, but it's this fine print that'll come in down the road. And if people just realize, everybody must have got the new property tax form that came out to everybody, right?
Yeah.
Right? And you have to self-proclaim how much your house is worth.
Yeah.
And in the last 4 or 5 years, house prices went up. Holy shock. House prices have been climbing all this time. And they knew they were coming out with your self-assessment. And they put it down on the form. If you don't assess your house properly, you can be liable to be fined or imprisoned. No, that's scare tactics amongst everything. And I went on just for myself, just to check what the average house price is. And for the cheapest, I think it's 241 a year for £240,000 house or something like that.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, in my area, the houses, the minimum is 247. So we have to go up to the higher one, the next one up. So they know exactly what they're doing, and people are not seeing through it, you know. And I just, I'm actually dreading the budget, being honest, Pat.
Now, Miriam, what are you looking forward to in the budget, really? I mean, the big headliners always get the big headlines, but as John said, when the finance bill come before the Dáil in January next, you know, when all the cover. But I was wondering, Miriam, before you start your answer, why can't they bring the old age pension up to 350 quid a week? I don't know why they can't do that.
I don't know. I don't know the pros and cons of it, Pat. I mean, you know, I'm not. I don't want to get caught into a conversation here where you
I know.
this goes out and you end up being pigeonholed in your answer. I don't know. I would definitely like to see the pensions go up. That's true. But I'm very reticent about criticizing the political parties after the pandemic. You know, give it another year, then go for them hell for leather. But right now, I honestly do feel that both Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil in particular, did a pretty good job. And I wouldn't have voted for either of them. I voted for Sinn Féin for the past 3 general elections, but I wouldn't vote for them again this year because I don't feel that they did anything but criticize. They did not get behind what was going on. They did not get behind the pandemic enough. And I just think it's very rich of us all to start criticizing the parties at the moment after what we've been through. I think we should give ourselves a breather, just have a look at what they're doing, see how this budget goes, see what the counter proposals are from the other parties. I know they're supposed to hold each other to account, but look, what are they going to say? What are they really going to come out with? We've seen what Labour have to say, and I haven't really heard from the other parties. I don't want to start slamming everybody.
No, I mean,
We're very soon, there's going to be another wave. As soon as all the restrictions are lifted and Christmas comes, Halloween, Christmas comes, there'll be another wave. We don't know what's going to happen then. We don't know how we're going to be curtailed again or not. And if that happens, you don't want to burn your boats.
No, you can only live in the moment. Obviously, it doesn't matter what the opposition party says about the budget. They're not in government. Mary, what do you think of the budget? What are you looking forward to the budget?
Oh, I'm not somebody either that likes to be too critical, because I mean, I kind of feel at some stage that people, I suppose they go in with these idealistic views of making a difference. Some do, and some continue on that line. Others don't follow that line, or they become they don't follow through with what they had originally planned when they started out on the road of politics. But I have to say that my particular bugbear all the time is the property tax. I would love to, and I won't see it happen, is for the property tax to be abolished for people who are living in their family home. I mean, people who would have no other choice to own a home other than the fact that a family member died and left the house to them, and that was the house that they have, that is their home, their primary home. I have no problem with property tax for people who have 2 and 3 and 4 houses and are renting them out and whatever. But when it's your family home, you're someone like me now, for instance, who inherited my house from my parents, and it was the only house I've ever lived in with them. I'm being penalized for my parents willing their house to me, and I have to pay for the pleasure of it every year. Now, you know, it's a privilege to have a home. Yes, it is. But there's so many people out there with 4 and 5 and 10 houses that they're renting out. I've no problems with anything in excess of the family home being taxed, but I have a huge problem with the family home. And I would love to see John was talking about self-assessment. That's an absolute nightmare, because you could go to, I mean, I could look at my house, which is a 2-bedroom semi-detached. And yes, I have a big garden at which you could build an extra house on. And my house might be a different price than somebody else's in my own area because of maybe the condition it's in. How do you self-assess your house? And then in 6 years' time, if you decide to sell it, and they decide that your house is at a more expensive price, are you going to be back charged?
Yes, you are.
That's my huge problem. You know, you're being caught in the
But
comfort
every country's the same though, Mary. I mean, in England, what was I paying? I was paying $1,200 a year for a 2-up, 2-down.
Yeah, but look at the services.
it's-
Look at the services you got for that price, for that money. Your rubbish was collected. You were paying. You know, you had good roads. You have great roads over in England. My God Almighty, where I'm living, it's a nightmare. It's like.
No, we didn't
it's like
always have. You see, this is the thing. We didn't always have.
Oh,
And
no,
I mean,
but,
they were only collecting the rubbish, what, every second or third week.
yeah,
And it was pretty bad, and that wasn't London. You
yeah.
know,
No, bigger, but
the
Chris,
the point I'm making is that it happens in France, it happens in England, it happens in Spain. Every single country is the same. Ireland pays no water rates. Ireland pays very, very little when it comes to property tax. We rattle our cages, and we seem to think that as an island nation we are exempt from so much.
oh, no.
No, I don't think
No,
that's
that's not right. That's
Why do
no,
we
no,
think that?
no.
Oh,
I
no, we
tell you,
don't.
well, I'll tell you why. I tell you.
Before I go to,
John is trying to come in there, Pat.
yeah, before I go to Chris about the budget, the Prime Minister of this country, Enda Kenny, stated publicly in the Dáil and on television that it would be immoral to tax the family home when he was Taoiseach.
Yeah, but
Why
Pat,
is it immoral?
Pat,
That's what
I,
he said. Chris,
Pat, you know,
Every other country in the
but you're-
world
but-
taxes the family
Pat,
home. Why is it
politicians-
immoral?
well, according to politicians, including Pat Rabbit, that's what politicians say when it comes to times of election. Okay, so let's get that one out of the hat anyway. Okay, so
The rabbit out of the hat. The
right,
rabbit
let's get
out
that
of the
rabbit
hat.
out of the hat, pardon the pun. Now, look, you ask me what I like to see in the budget, right? First of
Yeah.
all, I have no problem paying a property tax because our property tax is actually one of the lowest. You go to America, you could pay 12 grand a year.
Yeah.
John's point about the service is 100%, right?
Yeah.
Our services, I'd pay 500 a year if I got the services that the UK got.
Yeah,
No problem. That's only a tenner a week. I have no problem with that. Okay.
absolutely.
The problem is this, and this is where the model now. Someone mentioned here a few minutes ago, this is going to be a benign budget because the tsunami is going to hit us in the next 2 or 3 years. And John hit the nail on the head there about basically flinging out euros like confetti at a wedding. They gave people, and this is the point about social welfare. Social welfare is supposed to help the people in need. Students working 10 hours a week getting 350 quid tax free is not people in need. That's the problem, right? John is a community activist, I've been led to believe. If John is trying to get money for a certain thing that's needed in his area and is told that we haven't got the funds, yeah, but you have funds to give people who don't need money, but that's a different story. They panicked. Miriam is probably saying, right, give them a chance. We've given them a chance. They panicked. They flung out money that basically was cheap credit, right? And this is what this country is built on, cheap credit. Simple as that. The problem of the budget is this, right, is that there's two things I would love to see in this budget. A widening of the tax bands, right, for people who work, right, so that any increase in their salary that they get is not eaten up by tax to a point where it's actually not worth getting the rise. And the second thing, that whatever tax the amount you get after tax is not eaten up by every single charge like electricity, gas going up, and all that, okay? And your fuel in the car and stuff like that. This country has become a joyless, soulless country, in my opinion. And I'm being honest when I said that, okay? The problem that we have here is that we have had for the last 18 months, politicians telling us what to do, right? Yet they have not done exactly what they're supposed to have done by the rule book that they have set down. And there's
Exactly.
been numerous examples of that over the last 18 months. And I'll give you an example about what happened today and this week about an Irish soccer player who basically told us that he wasn't vaccinated. We had the ludicrous situation of this country, of every single sporting, cultural event, every single place of worship, every single coffee shop, bar, restaurant closed down until we get vaccinated. Now we're starting to open up, and we now have a situation that we can't go to see a rugby match or soccer match until we're vaccinated, so that we can now watch unvaccinated people play. Now,
yeah, I have to agree with Chris totally on this. This really made me annoyed.
Here's the problem that I have. Yeah, everyone's entitled to have their opinion on whether they want. But the reason, and I have a problem with this, that guy who played for Ireland today, and that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't watch it. That guy that played for Ireland today, right, is still able to collect his wage week in, week out, even though he's had COVID twice. While other people in this country and in the UK have lost their livelihood, have lost their marriages, have lost their homes because they have done exactly what the British and Irish governments have told them to do, right? Now, the point I'm having about this, right, is that, okay, give the politicians a chance. We've given them that chance. They have not complied to what they have told us to do. And that's the biggest problem that I have in this country. And the budget is only going to be a snapshot in time. But I wouldn't look at this budget as going to be the panacea of our problems. You look at what's going to happen in the next 5 or 6 budgets, because this bill is going to have to be paid for.
Well, it will.
Of course, yeah.
It's added to the national debt, but it's not a big bill. I mean, everything is relative. LiR Media.tv, the panel is a program, and we're with Mary, John, Miriam, and Chris. And before we finish the program, well, I'm looking forward to the old age pension of 250 quid. I had to say that in.
You've got a great pension. You don't need it.
I didn't promise that. But no.
When's the last time you bought anybody a coffee pack? Come on, let's be honest about it.
I know what that's about. I must meet you sometime.
I'm still waiting for that invitation.
I know, yeah. I owe Chris and his wife a coffee, I think. Now, language. We just a light thing before we finish. Language. Pronunciations. Is that correct? I don't know whether it is or not. Well, since I live in Ireland, I'm not worried what they say about medicine and all. John, what do you think? Do you understand some of the things that are phrases that are used on television, on programs? Or do things particularly annoy you? You know, I mean, do something annoy you?
But I was going to say, yeah, yeah, those kind of things, and especially when they're politicians, because it's like a rabbit. It repeats itself. A straight answer, yes or no? Not in your life. A 10-minute monologue.
Yeah. You mean answering questions about? Well, that's down to the person who's asking the questions, not to. I think Sarah McInerney is one of my favorite questioners. She's a very good broadcaster. I don't listen to that much of it, but I think she's very good. She does make people ask the questions. But Miriam, tell me something. I think you have a good grasp of things. Miriam is an author, as you know, as well, and so she would have a good grasp of the King's English. Dare I say that word, that phrase?
Don't. I don't speak King or Queen's English. Excuse me.
Why
would you go there, Pat? Why would you go there? Oh my God!
One would have to.
She's horrified.
Pat, one would have to embarrass oneself, wouldn't one?
Wouldn't one? Miriam is living in Drogheda.
No, I don't choose any of that. I don't choose. I have the same accent that my mother had. It's a Dublin accent. It's got nothing to do with.
And you're living in Drogheda.
And I live in Drogheda. Yeah, Drogheda.
Miriam's a staunch Irish woman and proud of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I say I lived in England, I only went there when I was 38 for the first time. You know, I'm hardly.
That was last year, was it?
No, but she taught English. She could teach English language.
Yeah, I taught corporate English as my fallback career for many years. A lot of actors and singers will have a fallback, and mine was corporate language teaching, and I taught for Berlitz in different places. So I would go into companies, big companies, Pfizer, Roche,
Yeah.
all of these different places, Ariana Spas, all these companies where you've got logistics managers and a lot of foreign personnel. And Ireland, of course, became one of those countries that had loads of those from the 1990s, from about 1992. So yeah, absolutely, I did. But I mean, from a media point of view, I think it's learning how to listen, which is very hard to do. But you know, you have to learn how to reduce your speech, your language down without using too many adjectives, without that kind of thing, is more interesting to me. It's a difficult thing to do, but it is more interesting.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not one for saying, you know, I think someone is you know, I don't want to say someone deserves what they get, which are lots of expressions that you'll get when we're talking about politicians and politics generally.
Yeah, yeah.
You hear a lot of that kind of expression, and for me, that just gets us nowhere.
Yeah.
That's the kind of language. If we're talking about language,
Yeah,
that's the
and
kind of language I like to
words,
stay away from.
words and phrases, yeah. Chris, have you taken your medicine?
He's still on about medicine.
Medicine.
I see. You see, Pat. I don't think I'm the one that needs the medicine around here tonight. I think, to be totally honest with you. But let me see. It's not. Maybe I think Miriam's point is quite good. Like, because you know, there's phrases that I don't like these days that come, like the going forward, the get go. I do not know what they mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky that, you know, I try and, in my job, I try and, what did one of my colleagues say to me about the other day? He says, I like your honesty, but sometimes you can be a little bit blunt. I kind of said, well, it's very hard. And this is
Surely not, Chris. Surely not.
And I kind of said to him, yeah, but it's very difficult to put your arm around your shoulder and show empathy to someone who's lost £500 in a payment dispute. You know what I mean? And without sounding patronizing. And that's exactly what happens. You know, so I try and be honest. I try and be kind of, look, you can do it this way. However, this is the other alternative. You don't go by policy. And the thing about it is that I think people appreciate honesty and less jargon. So I don't like using phrases where people are going to say, sorry, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because if you start using the phrases like that, it kind of means that you're a bit of a, a bit of a jerk.
Well, you know, Chris, honesty is very overrated at times.
No, honesty is the best policy. Seriously.
Honesty is wonderful unless you actually.
Mary, here's the thing, right? I mean, I could spend my day 8.5 hours every day saying things that people want to hear. But where does it get them in the end of the day? It doesn't get them anywhere, because then they come back and says, well, Chris told me I can have this. Yeah, but Chris is wrong. But he told me, he said, he promised. And then, but then the people come back to me and say, did you actually say that? I says, yeah, but you told me to be empathetic. This gives them what they want. So the point I'm making is that, you know, phrases and jargon is all well and good, right? But do people really understand it? That's my point.
Mary, now we know who to phone, lads, if you get something from eBay and you don't get it and it's not working.
Saturdays and Sundays are the best day to catch me, lads.
You mightn't get a word in edgeways if Chris answers the phone.
What about words? What about, have you taken your medicine, Mary?
No, I'll tell you, there's a few words that, you know, I sit and I think, oh God, here we go again. And for me, you know, I suppose they're just pet peeves, really. Lately, I'm starting to hear a lot, and particularly Irish children who would grow up in the system of learning English, and I think Miriam will understand this. You learn, I dive, I dived, I will dive, and I have dived. And then now they're coming out with I dove in. And I'm thinking,
well, that's American English.
It's American English, and I'm just thinking,
the Americans don't use the present perfect.
They don't, and you're there and you're saying, where
a dove was a bird.
It is.
It's American English.
It's American English, and you hear so many Irish youngsters now coming out with I dove in, and you're there and you're saying, you know that there's an English teacher in their English class, tormented trying to get the grammar into them, or the grammar as we would use it in this country and in the UK.
Here's one for you, Mary. Here's one for you. The bird, the dove, doved in Dover.
There you go. And like using like in between every phrase that you say, and like, and like, and I was telling you off camera about Miriam Margulies and how she put poor Will.I.am on Graham Norton, and every time, and the more she said it to him, the more he said like, because it was almost like a nervous tick with him. He kept putting like in, and she kept saying, it's not like, and you'd have to watch it. It was absolutely hilarious. I mean, before every sentence, when someone is asked a question and they're speaking for the first time and they preface the sentence with, I mean, and you're thinking, you're not qualifying your statement. You're not trying to qualify it. You've never made a statement up to now. So why are you bringing in, I mean? And the last one is lately, all I'm hearing is this phrase, circle back. I'll circle back with an answer. I'll circle back. It's just really starting to wear me down now. And I think it's actually stopped lately, but that phrase, circle back, I'll circle back with an answer to you. I'm thinking like, go away and circle somewhere else. And just...
You see, another thing that gets me is you shouldn't start a sentence with the word and. The only one that you can actually do that was with the song, and the band played the Waltzing Matilda. That's the only sentence that would be allowed to start the word with and, because and means, well, what's the first? And would be.
But I'm sure there was a semicolon before that.
But some people start the sentence with and I go, okay, so what was you trying to say before you used the word and? They didn't.
Well, what about starting a sentence with alas?
Pat always starts
Silas, we knew him well.
With alas. Pat always starts a sentence with alas. Alas, I can't.
That's because he's been using that for the last 17 years with the Cork hurlers. Alas, we lost again.
Chris, come in on that one. There's a one here in Cork. I don't know whether it is. Do you know? My mother's from Cork, so do you know that?
Yeah. That's a good one. Now, we're going to finish with Chris. Read out that one again for us, the Dover one.
Oh, I just thought of it straight away. The dove doved and died, and the dove doved in Dover. There's one for you.
Dove in Dover.
We've come to the end of this edition of the panel. It's been an absolute blast having you along. We really appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday night to be with us here on the panel. So,
and before you go, can we congratulate Miriam again on Writer's Block? And everybody should actually tune in to her YouTube channel, and she has Writer's Block and Business Block. And it's a fantastic show, and she has some fantastic guests on it.
Thank
and
you.
I've known she's just, I have to say, as a person who, probably flattering her now, but I've known her for years and years and years, since we were babies. But she's a multi-talented woman, and I'm in awe of her. And her
there's a particular interview that Miriam did before we finish, John. That's why I hinted her about Drogheda, and that's Richard Chamberlain in that famous, what was that series?
Thornbirds. You actually sat down and watched that, did you?
Miriam interviewed Richard Chamberlain recently. Miriam interviewed Richard Chamberlain recently.
So that's up on her YouTube channel, The Writer's Block, lads. Take a look at that. And that sets the standard for all of us. And, Miriam, look, it's been a blast. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, John. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Chris. We'll catch up again with you soon, lads. Thanks so much for this edition of the panel. Good evening and take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.